Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, this is an informal conversation on the Better Black America TV. And basically, what's trending in politics is Trump's third term. If you did not know, it hit national news. We've been talking about this on the back end. But the Trump administration is pretty much seen looking at the legalities of running for a third term. So it's possible through litigation that we can actually get a third term with Donald Trump. And if you know history, there's a multifaceted of situation. A president can actually have consecutive terms, and historically is typically between in war times, but in this particular time, Trump did not do 2 consecutive terms, and the Constitution says 2 consecutive terms. Now, you know, my black job is special ambassador, okay, to Black American and humanitarian affairs. Just like Elon Musk is not an elected official and run Doge, he's the head of Doge. I'm a non-elected official, and I'm the head of what Black American and humanitarian affairs. And this is an informal conversation. I will be in the comments today. And we're going to chop it up, have conversations about what the working class plan is, because the working class has literally figured out that the working class and the middle class are the same thing. And the key word to the working class and middle class is class. Okay. Now, a house divided cannot stand. And one thing that we do understand that our Democratic elected officials have dropped the ball. Our elected officials are not doing the job or the will of the people. Our Democratic officials are fighting for their careers, and they're fighting to protect the hand that feeds them, metaphorically speaking. And from a realistic perspective, they're fighting to protect the individuals that funds their campaigns and put them in office, the individuals that we don't see, because the Democrats could be in the best position of their lives right now. Okay, they can basically be in a situation where they can actually champion the American people, champion the working class, champion the Black man, the Latinos, all the immigrants. But somehow, some way, they are hook, line, and sinker. And this was said by Chuck Schumer on The View, that one thing that all the Democrats or all the elected official Democrats agree upon is taking down Trump. So if you are taking down Trump, you are literally talking about taking down the American president. So the American president is the president of all the United States of America. If your job, and if you guys are united to take down Trump, then you're literally trying to take down the United States of America. And how can American people, the working class, more importantly, and the middle class is the working class as well, how can we sit back and look at our elected officials try to take down the United States? And I'm speaking on the Democratic elections, in which Chuck Schumer said that they are united on taking Trump. Because when you talk about a civil war, okay, the Civil War is not going to be Republicans versus Democrats. Okay, the Civil War is not going to be Republicans versus Republicans, because Republicans are united for the first time. Contrary to popular belief, the working class and the middle class, which is the working class. So when I say working class, I'm including the middle class, united than we have ever been before. Because regardless of who the president is in the United States, regardless of what political party that you support, you still have to pay your bills. You still have to pay your mortgage. You are still required, just like the rest of us, to leave this place a better place than it was. We inhabited the place, meaning leave our children's an inheritance. So now the American people are pretty much pulling away from what the Bible would say to scribes and Pharisees and aligning ourselves as humanitarians. This is why I'm taking on the position as a Black ambassador to special ambassador to Black American affairs, because when you talk about the working class and middle class, the key component is class. And that's the common denominator, because basically, if you're not rich, wealthy, and influenced and you're white, then you're in a class with the majority people. Okay. So this is why we cannot join your movement. You can't join your liberalism. We can't join your protesting or anything like that. Because when you look at what's really going on in the world today, it's confusing because you have from within who's trying to take down the United States. Now, you got Elon Musk, head of Doge. Okay. Now you have people protesting Tesla. Okay. More importantly, these are individuals who can't even afford a Tesla. Think about that. Elon Musk is doing a job that he was hired to do. And in the state of Washington, there was a vandalism situation where they blew up Tesla cars, the Molotov cocktails and all of that, graffiti, all of that. And come to find out, it was a Japanese man. Think about that. Why do we have Japanese men parading, going around destroying companies and American products? Because that Japanese individual pretty much was trying to make himself appear to be a member of Antifa. Now, I got some Antifa friends and I've had conversations with them after the Trump election, because during Black Lives Matters, they were basically, about class, Bouchon, it's about this and it's about that. But these are regular working class people, more importantly, military, American bred, American born, but they're class. And every time I have a debate with them, we're talking about class, but I have to let them know by default, you guys are in the class of the original minority, which is the black race. So this is our opportunity. And this is, our way of doing, what's right in terms of what our ancestors couldn't do in the past, because in the Civil Rights Acts and all of that, they pretty much told us to wait our turn. We've been waiting our turn for 60 years and now we're taking the lead, and rising of the tide grows. I mean, everybody grows. This is why they added the component of humanitarian affairs attached with Black American affairs. Okay, so let's be honest with ourselves. President puts out, a campaign trail, and he talks about he's for the working class and he's for this and he's for that. And now that you see the tariffs are turning out to be something, that could be actually positive. Now that you can see that, companies are coming to America and investing in America, Taiwan with the chip manufacturers in Arizona. Okay, Hyundai is going to build factories and steel mills in Georgia, as well as the state of Louisiana. Okay, Toyota is in Indiana. So now that the American products are being brought here, so now, we can actually understand that these are American jobs. So now we're starting to understand that the American president are the American people. Okay, regardless of what the media says, you got to be honest with yourselves. Trump is from Jamaica, Queens, New York, born in Jamaica, Queens Hospital. He's the first president in the United States history, and Barack Hussein Obama, that is not associated with any legalized slave trading family. Okay, number one. Number two, okay, they are basically, he's hired Doge. Okay, to pretty much find the free, and they have found trillions of dollars that they're talking about sharing with the American citizens. But we got to get a slice of that pie. But we cannot, have these conversations and these debates with individuals who do not love this country. So in the caption, I put Social Security verification. So if you did not know, don't found frivolous spending in our Social Security industry. Okay, and in our Social Security industry, they have developed that there is 1.6 million people over the age of 120 in the United States, which is totally a lie. 1.6 million people over the age of 120. They even got individuals documented at 300 years old that is still getting a current security check. So the Trump administration has put in a corrective action. So now if you are a Social Security recipient, you have to pretty much verify in person. Okay. And verifying in person is a tough thing. I'm going to pretty much, fight for the working class, and maybe not in person, but from a verification perspective, just like when you go to a crypto app, if you did EDD online, if you have to do your verifications, get the check on Facebook, Instagram, you put your ID. They know how to superimpose and verify your ID. They know how to do the facial images, things like that. So if you are a Social Security recipient, get ready to identify yourself, because they have to stop the frivolity. And when they do that, their whole plan is to find out where these checks are going and who's cashing checks. So this is why the elected officials are doing their job, which is to the resistance to the United States and resist everything that the Trump administration is trying to do, because the Democratic elected officials have to pretty much hide or support the hand that actually feeds them or put them in office. Okay, they have to protect, and that's the word. They have to protect the hand that feeds them, and the hand that feeds them is the people that we don't see, the evildoers in high places, that, the dark money that got these elected officials elected. Because when I sit back and I, look at history and I do the math, I'm sitting back saying this is an opportunity of a lifetime. This is an opportunity for our Democratic elected officials to get to work and prove to its constituents, and more importantly, the American people, love this country. But for whatever reason, they're hook, line, and sinker. And according to Chuck Schumer, they are all on board to destroy Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And when I read my Bible, it says not flesh and blood. Okay. He tried to assassinate him. Okay. They already tried to do that. Okay. And the Bible says that, God will use a fool to compound the wise. So now these wise individuals who think they know everything are literally seeing their careers destroyed and being forced to do things that they don't want to do, just to protect the dark money, the evildoers in high places, and protect the individuals that put them in office. And this is crazy. So this is why the working class and them to mount up for the working class movement and get outside of these, these protesting organizations, get outside of these liberal organizations, get outside of these progressive movements that pretty much distract us, because all that you see doing all the protesting and all of that, these protests, they based on the media, you can about 30, 40, 50 people at tops. Okay, just pretty much mad about whatever because they're associated with the organization. But just look back during the George Floyd situation, when somehow they, motivated and pumped up the black community. You had individuals out by the thousands, by the millions, and murals was painted all over the states of America. So, without the black race being involved, they can only look, suspect. So now that the black men and black women, more importantly, black women, have stepped back and went on record and said, we're not going to protest with any of these things, and we're going to sit back and make that change. And this is why I'm accepting the selected position as a special ambassador for Black American and humanitarian affairs. Okay. And that's purely the working class. It has nothing to do with Republicans. It has nothing to do with Democrats. It has everything to do with your tax bracket. So in my mind, if you make less than $500,000 annually, okay, you are a part of the working class, and it's probably 80 to 95% of, America. Okay, so we have the power. This is our moment in time. This is our season to reap what we have sown. And the black race has invested in this country for over 400 years. And they expect us to sit back because their enemy is the president of the United States. No, we see that as an opportunity to get everything that we should have gotten 60 years ago when they passed the Civil Rights Acts. And all they did was busted up the black family, destroyed our organizations and movements, and assassinated anybody that was with the black race growing. And case in point, you really just think about it. Why did we just celebrate 60 years of women empowerment and 60 years of pride? Think about that. Why did not we celebrate 60 years of black empowerment or 60 years of advancement? Because the black race is supposed to be an asset to this country, not a liability, because in the Civil War, we was a great asset because the black race assisted the Union in defeating the Dixiecratic Democrat. So the Dixie Democratic South historically is against the Union of the United States of America. So now we have an opportunity to create history, to be on the right side of history, what we're supposed to do. And that's working, and that's looking out for the common man, least of these. It's not about Jews, Gentiles, or anything. We're all humans. But the only way we can get to that next level, if we end racism, and then if we end it, it will be one race, and that's the human race. And the best way to do it is to rise to the top of the classes. And that's the working class, and that's the middle class, because I know the working class wants to be rich. The middle class wants to be rich, and the working class wants to be middle class, because a tree grows up. Okay. And the trickle down effect does not work. So we got all the data. So now figure this thing out. And the Trump administration, okay, has put out these working class, conversations, or put together these working class, bills, okay, that's been introduced, and tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That's a start. Okay. And they're talking about no tax on individual wage earners that make less than $150,000. And if you make less than $500,000, we want it to be capped out at 10%. Okay, we don't want, if you're making $500,000 a year to be taxed out at 37% on the tax bracket. Crazy. Okay, and only somebody who works hard, who's successful, can understand that, because individuals who really, at the bottom of the totem pole, they really don't understand that, because if you earn more, you pay more, and that's not fair. Okay, because if you earn more, you should be able to save more, invest more to grow your family and to put yourself in a different position in life. But we have individuals who siding with the Democratic Party, and they want to bring down any progress. But right now and today, we say no. And I'm sure we're more, united on this stance, because I'm sure we're tired of every 10 years, the country grows and get to another level. And then next thing you know, there's a change in presidency, and then all of these things start to happen. So look at the Democratic Party for the last 4 years. They were loose on crime. They were loose on money, just giving money to nonprofits and organizations and sending money abroad, and the USAID. And now the Trump administration is in. And now literally they're exposing, but when you expose something, you destroy something. So they call the repeal and replace. This is what we call regime change and nation build. So looking at these things continue to go on. This is why the Trump administration is basically, looking to do a third term, because we do not want to see this country continue to build and destroy itself. We want the country to be, have domestic tranquility, just like the Constitution says. So we as Americans got to understand that there is a working class coalition, which includes the middle class, that we can actually get more things done in the next 4 years has ever been done in the history of the United of America. And that's real. So if we can get this, and this is what we got to do, and get these conversations, up to our elected officials, because we need to see what they're made of. We need to see if the Democrats love it, because as a black man, from Los Angeles, we want to see a House floor vote on no tax on tips. We want to see a House floor vote on no tax on overtime, to see a House floor vote, no tax on Social Security. And we want to see a House floor vote and a bill drawn up for tax exemption for wage earners that earn less than $150,000. Okay. And we want tax reform. We want the taxes to cap out at 15%, meaning if you make over $500,000, you're only being taxed at 5%. If you make over $1 million, you only being 10%. And if you make over 2.5, whatever, they maxed out at 15%, as long as capital gains tax as well need to come down, because when the people have more money, the people spend more money. Okay. And this you call accountability. This is what you call real tax reform. And this is why we, the people, have to have these conversations, because our Democratic officials have pretty much abandoned the people. Okay. If you did not know, Democrats, they're having in-house issues. They're fighting amongst other. They're having their own civil war, and their revolution is not being televised. If we were to ask who's the leader of the Democratic Party, answer would be we don't know. Okay, because they have not even groomed, shaped, or molded the leadership for years to come, because I think they know without a shadow of doubt, and their data is saying that their mere existence is in question. Because this is why when you look at the Democratic Party and they sit back and says that, Trump is a threat to their democracy, because I believe that their democracy is over, because they have literally people. And the people are not running to be Republicans. OK, we're running to be Americans, to make sure that this great nation becomes greatest as she's ever been in our lifetime. Because Trump ran on the mantra, make America great again. OK, we have not seen or experienced America being great. So we can understand what he's trying to do, but we have to aid and abet, the Trump administration to doing great things. And it will not be get the credit. The people will get the credit. And if you did not know, the Constitution letterhead, old English writing is we the people. Okay, so now we the people understand and we're demanding no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, on Social Security, tax exemption for wage earners earning less than $150,000. Okay, tax reform and max out the tax bracket at 15%. Okay, max capital gains taxes at 15%. Okay, and continue for the causes of the American people. This is what we can do. We can and we will. And now somebody's in the chat right now, and I'll get to the chat. And things are coming down slowly, but it got to come down much more than it has come down before. But this is what we do, and this is how we do it. Okay, you got people out there protesting and doing all these things. All we have to do is have an educated conversation. That's all we got to do is have an educated conversation and come together as as one. Okay, and somebody put in inflation is up, groceries up, jobs down, national security way down. And this is why the working class people have to, because if we could somehow funnel some of this money back into the bank accounts of the American people, that would give us the cushion that we need to make the adjustment to groceries, to make the adjustments to inflation, the gas prices, and everything else. So this is why the Trump administration is talking about a $5,000 stimulus from the frivolous spending that has been found from Doge. And I'm hearing conversations about a $30 stimulus check that will be coming from the federal government. So you're talking about, $8,000 right there, $8,300 possibly. Okay. And then, what's going on? The handouts need to go to the American people, because when the handouts go to the American people, what do the American people do? Put that back into the economy. Okay, it's called a stimulate the economy, and all the trillions of dollars that Doge has found. That's why your Democrats are very quiet and silent right now, because I follow a lot of these elected officials on Instagram, on Twitter, and all just posting pictures because somebody in power has told them to shut their mouths and wait on their assignment, and their assignment is to destroy America. Now, support your billionaires. You got hard pass here. Listen. There's no way I could support a billionaire. You know why? Because I don't know any. I could support my community. And if I could get my community from being a hood to a community where we're recycling dollars, we don't have to leave the community to get, healthy grocery stores. We don't have to leave the community for our banking. So, okay, this will help the working class. So my job, as a special ambassador to Black American humanitarian affairs, is to look for the least of these, and that's the working class individuals, because billionaires are going to be okay no matter what. I had a conversation the other day, billionaires don't even pay taxes. Listen, a billionaire is not a wage earner. Let's have some common sense. A billionaire is not a wage earner. Everybody just did their taxes and it says income tax. Okay. Income tax, earned income. Okay. You put what you earn as a wage earner. A billionaire comes from investments, stocks, bonds, things of that nature. So quite naturally, they put $1 or zero. Okay. But when the billionaires have tax breaks, this is when the billionaires create jobs, opportunities. Okay. When they tax the ultra rich, it affects the people, because a rich organization or rich corporation, if they don't get the tax breaks that they are looking for, then they're going to cut jobs. And this is why the tariffs are so important, because the tariffs are bringing jobs here in America. Because last week, the Trump administration was taking a victory lap, because they ran up the score last week, because when Hyundai came aboard, already Taiwan is making chips to be chip manufacturers in Arizona. Hyundai decided to bring their steel mills here to Louisiana and the state of Georgia to create the parts that's going to make the cars that they're going to be manufacturing here in the United States. And I saw on some conversations upwards of 140 plus thousand jobs, American people, to American people. It is what it is. So when we have these conversations, we really have to, look out for the least of these. And like for me, it's a holiday. I could be doing a million things, but I'm making a decision to go off the record, to assume my position, my black job as an ambassador to special ambassador to Black American and humanitarian affairs, must do the will of the people. So now that we, the people, are abandoning the two-party system, because when I read my Bible, okay, yes, I'm God-fearing. Jesus didn't come to change the scribe or Pharisees. He came to fulfill. So our job, Republican or Democrat, and if you are Republican or Democrat, it's okay. Okay, at the end of the day, you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And at the end of the day, with prices being, as high as they are, things going out of control, and it looks like we're in chaos, we can actually pull this thing off. And this will be the opportunity of our lifetime. Because when you talk about, tax breaks and tax reforms and stimulus checks, that's for, a stimulus will stimulate the economy. Okay, the Trump administration is in conversations, is trying to find a way to create tax reforms with tax exemptions for all wage earners earning less than $150,000. Already introduced no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. But what hurts my heart is that not one Democratic elected official is talking about any of these working class bills already been introduced. And this is the part where we have to separate ourselves. And this is the part where we got to understand that they can only do or say what they're told to do or say. So they're pretty much high-priced slaves, so to speak, because we know without a shadow of a doubt, every Democratic official represents a state, city, county where the working class needs some of these kick from the government. Okay, some of these bills that would actually help their constituents. Okay, one, Maxine Waters is here in Los Angeles, but she goes viral in DC. But the communities that she serves, I guarantee you, the median home value or bring home income is less than $85,000. So everyone that Maxine Waters in Maxine Waters district that she represents, it would be beneficial for them to basically go and draw these bills or go to the House floor and put these bills to a vote so the American people could see where the Democrats really stands, because no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, tax exemption for wage earners earning less than $150,000 much affect, in a good way, all Democrats, whether you're black, white, or indifferent. This is why the working class and the middle class have to come together, because the common denominator in this is class. It might be class to whites or Asians, okay, but this is the position that America has somehow cemented the black race in, since its, acknowledgement of being here in the United States, 20th of the year 1619. So we've been investing into this country for over 400 years. So now it's time for the give back. This is not the time to fight and argue. This is not the time for it, because there's nothing to debate, because I know everybody is down with a tax exemption under $150,000. I know that everybody, all humans, are down with tax reform. Okay, it's not about, the billionaires and all that. Give them a tax break. Okay, but if you make under $150,000, you're not being taxed at all from an income perspective on the federal level. So that means, you can save some money, you can invest, and then they're talking about no tax on overtime. So as a wage earner, all that overtime that you make, and if you push the line and make over $150,000, you're only being taxed at a 5% tax rate. Think about that. That is a win for the world. That is a win for all black people. Okay. That is a win for all white people. That is a win for all human beings that are legally here in these United States of America. And I'm sure I have not heard where, what Trump has done in terms of turning the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. Because when Elon Musk's team, Stargate, went and, got these, the individuals lost in spacecraft was defaulted, and Elon Musk and SpaceX went and got the individuals in space. And when they came down and when they hit the ocean or the bay of that was crazy. Because when they say the Gulf of Mexico, when they landed and they said the Gulf of America, I was proud. I was like, wow, an American rocket organization went and got these individuals in space, and then they brought them back and they landed in the Gulf of America. And I know that nobody has an issue with the president of the United States, okay, signing a mandate to only recognize versus female, regardless of your lifestyle, whatever you do, that's fine. Do you, no judgment. You're beautiful, that's fine. But when to recognize male versus female, I have not seen an argument or a debate. I've not seen an argument from the executive action that the president signed that born males cannot compete in female sports. I have not seen that, okay, because it's not fair for a average born male to convert to a female and go down sports. That's not right. And we don't have to accept you for who you are, is what it is. So I could just imagine what the physical would be like next year. Okay, because there are some suspects playing right now. And so the physical is going to be, just like when we were kids and we had to take the hernia test and, we have to pull our pants down and turn your head and call and turn your head and call. You're going to have to pull those layers back and show the doctor where either you got an innie or outie. And if you got an outie, you're going to be out of female sports. And nobody has a problem with that. And then when you have, the Trump administration talking about tax break for the American people, it is what it is. It is what it is. And somebody hard past any black people in Trump's cabinet, yes, is the only one. And we can go ahead and call him the token. And he's the Secretary of HUD, Urban Development. I don't know his name right now, but there's one black man in the Trump cabinet, and he's the director of HUD, Urban Housing Development, and he's a former NFL athlete. Did not know Brian Donalds, was looking to be one of the individuals out the Trump administration, but he decided to do something better. That black man, Brian Donald, who basically was helped one of Trump's surrogate, and met with his team, that he's actually, wasn't one of Trump's cabinet members. He's running for the governor of Florida. Okay, now if whether you be on Trump's cabinet or the governor of Florida, I'd rather run for. What I'm saying is, listen. You keep your friends close. Talking to hard pass. Your friends close and your enemies closer. So these individuals that Trump has earmarked for his cabinet is the best. If you did not know, I'm in California and I've been looking at the director of the Secretary of Homeland Security. She's doing a presser in terms of commercials talking about if you are a legal immigrant, leave now. And if you leave now, you might be able to come back because the Trump administration. So it's like they're doing their jobs. OK, and so, let me see here. Mexicans aren't going anywhere. No, you the homies. You are brown brothers. We don't want y'all going anywhere. OK, because like I said, the communities that I grew up in, I've been, dealing with the essays, the Latinos my whole life. So, if you're second, third, fourth, where you going to go? You're American. You guys are born here on the soil. He's talking about illegal immigrants, people who came here undocumented. And Obama deported more than basically deported more illegal immigrants more than any sitting president in American history. Number two is Bill Clinton. OK, so let's be honest with ourselves. But in a sense of the Mexicans that's leaving, they're not sending people and taking them to Mexico. They're going, look, these are international issues that's going on. It is what it is. And hard past one black guy. So yes, I'm very serious because listen, black men like myself, we don't need to be, fetching in Trump's organization. Okay, because when you find a black man, and I got to give you some of this game hard pass because you all in the comments today. Okay, when you find a black person that's a socio-political situation, these are your coons and Lambos. Every black individual that's an elected official that's Democratic, they can't do or say anything. They're literally what we black faces in white places. So for the Trump administration to only have one brother, and that's the director of HUD, and the rest white, I can understand that because what black individual wants to go out and sell out and basically knows that they don't have power. knows that their voice is not going to be heard, know that you can only do or say what you're told. And that's real. Because when you look at the Democratic Party, why do you have so many black people as elected officials in the Democratic Party? Because every black Democrat, until proven wrong, is a sellout and have sold their soul. Think about that. Every black individual, from Maxine Ward, Cory Booker, Hakeem Jeffries, the whole nine, they are literally working for massa. Massa. Okay. When you look at any of these movies, you know, the Samuel L. Jacksons were Democrats, man. And it's sad that people are so ignorant to not understand the truth. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery. So these handpicked individuals that work as elected officials for the Democratic Party is no different than the housemaiding in the slavery house, the bedwenching concubine, and the slave house Negro himself. That's fact. And it has never, ever changed. That is fact. This is why, you know, they say that the other is racist, because they are the sellouts. You don't have to disagree. This is fact. Look at all the poor Democratic cities that are ran by black city workers, a black mayor in the South. These are cities that are designed to be broke, busted, and disgusted. We just celebrated 60 years of Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama. Alabama has a black mayor. It is one of the worst cities in America. Birmingham, Alabama, one of the worst cities in America. Memphis, I could go on and on and on. When they give it to the black race, it's over. And they can't say anything. We have a mayor in Karen Bass. He couldn't even say anything on record until she spoke to Boss. And we don't know who Boss is. Let's have this conversation, because God's will not perish due to the lack of knowledge. And a lot of you really don't understand. The Democratic Party, the root of the Democratic Party is slavery. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, these were our so-called abolitionists, and they both were Republicans. Martin Luther King was a Republican. Think about that. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery. The root of it, it was and it always will be. It was and it always will be. So when individuals want to sit back and say, oh, Trump don't have any black, like what black man in their right mind wants to be a cabinet member of the Trump administration? Because you're just there just to be a face. So the director of HUD and Ben Carson was director in Trump's first administration. So it's common that a black person would have that position. But what black man qualified for Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State? You know, from a diplomatic perspective, going to foreign nations and talking to, you know, on a global. So you're going to send a brother to Iceland to try to have a conversation. Think about that. So it has nothing to do with that. And you have these individuals that's here in America that's been drinking the Kool-Aid, okay? And they listen to these ignorant Negroes and they pretty much tell them a story that they were told, and then they want to take, because no black person in their right mind will go on record. It's always a Latino, white boy, or, you know, a homosexual male, because they don't want to, you know, they have to fight for something, okay? But when we have the real conversations, the Democratic Party is a party of slavery. The Democratic Party they're the ones trying to erase history. They want to take certain books out of the history books, but in the meantime, turn your son into a girl. Really? In the meantime. Okay, so their job is to pretty much protect the so-called few and to get the right blacks in a position of power to pretty much have these conversations, because it's more believable when a black man says it. But that's the difference between Uncle Tom, the Coon, and the Sambo. Then you realize that these are black faces in high places. And at the end of the day, they're supporting slavery. They're supporting white supremacy. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. With the, Ulysses Grant, one of the generals for the Union Army, went to Abraham Lincoln and basically said, with the black newly freed slave as an asset can actually help us. And if you know, approximately 200,000 free Negroes signed on and fought on the side of the Union for their freedoms and their liberties. But the reason why a lot of people don't know this, because the assassins assassinated Abraham Lincoln before he can actually do the job or the will of the people. So the Democratic Party is the party of slavery. The Democratic Party is the party that, the black family through welfare. The Democratic Party is the party of mass incarceration. Bill Clinton signed the 1994 Three Strikes and You Out, was signed by Bill Clinton. Joe Biden, the Democrat Joe Biden, he pretty much got it passed in Congress. Hillary Clinton, the former presidential candidate, who the glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton went on record and promoted the 94 crime bill. And she called people that looked just like me super predators and said we needed to be brought to heel. So think about it. You look at any slave movie in the South, Master's right-hand man is a Negro. Look at Django. That was in Texas. Juneteenth come from Texas, meaning, they didn't get the memo till a year later. And that's more than likely because they couldn't read. Okay. The paper would come out. Oz can't read. So if you look at the movie Django, they was in the state of Texas, and Samuel L. Jackson's character was depicting the modern day Democrat. Somehow, some way, the Democratic Party has hoodwinked you, got you bamboozled, led you astray, and they let you run amok with that misinformation. Okay, because they're not talking about it. Okay. And when you look at now segregation forever, that was the governor of Louisiana. His name was George Wallace. That was in the 1960s. Segregation now, segregation forever. Okay. So think about that. These are Democrats. If we can't beat them, join them. And this is what happened and why Dr. King was pressed aside, because he was really trying to do something special. But somehow, some way, Lyndon B. Johnson saw an opportunity and pretty much, desegregated the South. Okay. And got rid of leaders because Dr. King had another plan. And we've basically taken the baton and the mantle. And we're not the poor people's party because we're not poor, but we are basically a party for the people, by the people. And it is what it is. So let me see somebody. What country helped runaway slaves? What country? Mexico. Okay. I understand that. Like I said, and if you don't understand, tune into A Better Black America. The word black is an acronym for Black, Latin, Asian, Caucasian, kinsman, meaning it's one race, a human race. There are just some things on the books that we got to handle right now. And we believe wholeheartedly, if to, be about the working class, let's hold the President Trump accountable for his campaign slogans. That's no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security, no tax on wage earners less than $150,000, a stimulus check, from Doge at $5,000. And then we can work on a constitutional amendment, take the criminalization clause off the Constitution. So mass incarceration, we'll figure out a way, to help the billionaires with that. And somebody put in a comment, Trump won. And I'm with you 100%. Thank God Trump won. But it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And the media is the ones that's doing the scare tactics, because time that I check, the immigrants that's being deported are illegal immigrants that was sent to this country from these war-torn, countries. They sent their criminals here. Okay, so they can have a global enterprise with the fentanyl, with the meth, with the drugs, the human trafficking, things of that nature. So a lot of the people, like here in my community, like it never happened. The taco stands, they shut them down. But now I grabbed a taco the other day. Okay. And I said, where were you? They said, we was worried about Trump. Okay. Because we have too many issues here in LA, which is a sanctuary city. there's bigger fish to fry, because these are some bad actors that were actually, put in this country to do some bad things. And it's crazy that the Democrats have set this country up to fail, lost the election, and now that's doing a good job of trying to do it the right way. You have black people and Democrats trying to make it seem like, it's something bad because they're listening to our elected officials, because our elected officials, their only thing that they're on board with to destroy Trump. OK, and that's not going to happen, because if God made Trump to die he would allow that assassin's bullet to blow his head off. And we would have had a John Kennedy moment in the history books and cards. And then the Democratic Party would have had the kumbaya, would have brought us together, and then they'll be, got rid of their enemy. But he won. And now they're running scared and they don't know what to do. It is what it is. So God's people shall not be a lack of knowledge. And the Democrats are showing us who they really are. OK, because if I was an elected official as a Democrat, more than likely, representing the party of slavery, you're just slave, and I got to do what I was told. So this is why God saw fit for me not to join any of these organizations, so I could do the will of God and work with the people, for the people, by the people. And this is why we can actually, have the movement and have the power, in a sense of the no tax on tips, tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and tax exemption, income tax exemptions for all American citizens that make less than $150,000. And I saw that with the Secretary of Commerce, say that on Face the Nation 2 weeks ago. So it is what it is. So now, this is our moment. This is our moment in history. This is our moment in history to do what's right. And to combat inflation, these high prices, and the possible advances in the sense of the tariffs will add, extra dollars to retail and things that are imported. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, tax exemption for wage earners on the federal level, less than $150,000. And when I say on the federal level, meaning no federal taxes. Now, certain states are abolishing state taxes to help the people out. But this is how you help the people. And this one, and it's sad that I have not seen not one Democratic elected official speak on any of these things. It's sad, because like I said, in the perfect world, our elected officials, our Democratic elected officials, would have had a press conference by now. Our Democratic elected officials would have poke. Our Democratic elected officials would have drawn up the bills and somehow taken it to the, and the press conference would have sounded something like, we're the Democratic caucus in conjunction with the Congressional Black Caucus. We are united. We want to, oppose a bill for the working class people. OK, the president, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, Social Security, and no taxes, tax exemption for wage earners earning less than $150,000, and a $5,000 stimulus check from Doge, and a $3,800 stimulus from the federal government. We've drawn up the bill, and we're going to take it on the House floor tonight. Just imagine, how many people would tune in to C-SPAN to see this vote. Think about that. The yays and the nays. But the sad part about it, it appears that the slavery Democratic Party are 100% nay in those working class bills. And they're holding up the progress of the American people. And that's a fact. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit back and just tuck our tails. But no, we're not slaves. We're not on the Democratic plantation. We're not black faces in high places. We are American citizens that love this country. And we're going to fight for the working class. And the middle class is the working class. So we have to demand it. OK, share this information. Hit that like, hit that notification. Send these things, talk to your Congress members, your senators, because we want this thing to get to a House vote. And the sad part about it is that they're telling me that the Democrats can't do it because they are nothing but black faces in white places. And there are nothing. At the end of the day, high price, slaves, house Negroes, house maidens, bedwench concubines, and actual cotton picking slaves themselves. This is what the Democrats are telling me. They're telling me that they can't do it because when you are a part of the Democratic Party, you're not you anymore. Your soul belongs to the Democratic Party, which more importantly, you sold your soul. So if you sold your soul and it's not with God, you sold to the devil. Think about that. And it was a time where members from the Nation of Islam, will call them white devils. And it was in the 60s when the white devils was the Democrats that was beating the crap out of blacks, Southern Democratic states and cities. Think about it. The truth hurts, but it will make us free. So now that our elected officials, the individuals that you follow on TikTok, these hoods that go into the House of Congress and make all black people look bad, they ain't nothing but some slaves, some prostitutes, and bedwench and concubines who work for the Democratic Party. It is what it is. And Rob Dan said that you obviously back Trump, and that's not true. We voted for Jesus Christ. We wrote him in because our spirit wouldn't allow us to scribe and a Pharisee. Didn't back Trump. Okay. Trump is something that could come and go. He's going to do 8 years, possibly even more of since, because the Constitution says, no 2 consecutive terms, but there are issues where you can extend, during times of war, but pray to God that we don't have that. But for the most part, I am what you call pro-American. Pro-American. And got to my first question, please. Go back to my first question. Put your first now, because it's the comments are lit up, Rob Dan, and then I'll answer the question in my word. But put the question in again, your first question, Dan. So listen, I'm a black man, Native American, okay, not an Indian, okay, Native, born here in the United States. My black heritage, my black history goes traced back to Jamestown, Virginia, the year 1619. And in the states of North and South Carolina, that's when they was breeding individuals who share the last name that I share. And that's her. And if you look up, and I've done it myself, ancestry.com, over 1,400 Glovers fought in the Civil War. So where did they find 1,400 men named Glover unless they were basically being bred to do what they were doing? It is what it is. So as a pro-American, okay, and as a individual who, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, and that's biblical. Okay, Trump is representing Caesar, but in the midst of, we're going to render unto God's, and that's, what's God's. And our job is to look out for the American least of these. Okay, when you sit back and have a situation here in California and you're earmarked millions of dollars to take care of the homeless situation, and then 2 years later you do a you check the stats on the homeless situation, and it's worse after the $1 million investment. That's crazy. So Dan said, let me see here. What is the closing of libraries and down our black history? Okay, Rob Dan. Number one, that's a lie. Okay, think about it. That's like saying back 20, 30 years ago, oh, they're taking down our encyclopedias. Okay, we got Wikipedia. You see what I'm saying? So we got the internet. So this is the Democrats saying this because it's the Democrats that don't want you to read, things that, okay, the miseducation of the Negro. It's the Democrats that don't want you to read these books. It's the Democrats that don't want you to read the Willie Lynch letter. Okay, so it's the Democrats playing a game on you, which got you hoodwinked and bamboozled. You're dumb because the Democrats, back when I can remember, they didn't even want you to read. And then Kelvin Jackson, anybody with the name of Jackson, that's a slave in itself. Okay, so this slave boy right here, Kelvin Jackson, saying lies is because the truth is a hard pill to swallow. There's nothing that I said is a lie. These are all facts. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery. Whole Southern strategy. They just don't say nigger, 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 nigger no more. They say, the black community or the black race or things like that. And Rob Dan said, I'm no Democrat or Republican. And to prove that fact, Rob Dan, Mr. Dan, this was my presidential candidate right there. I wrote in Jesus Christ. So I will not be a hypocrite, whether Harris or Trump won. Okay, because if Harris won, we was going to press the line. We was going to press them. Okay, now Trump won. Let's go ahead and figure out what we need to figure out. And now that our Democratic elected officials, their job is to stop Trump, then we're not going to sit back and be a casualty of war. We're going to sit back and be a casualty of war. Okay. We're not going to help either side. We're going to help ourselves. So as the working class, when I say working class, that middle class, okay, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, no tax on tax exemption for wage earners earning less than $150,000 on the federal income tax bracket, and the $5,000 that will be for all Americans. Okay. And if you ask any economist, would that hurt the country? No, it's a stimulus, and it is actually going to help the country. It is. Let me see here. God, country, family, and personal responsibility, not complaining about the past. Amen. So this is why we got to have these conversations and pretty much seek out the haters, seek out, the slaves, the Sambos, the individuals that support the party that hung our ancestors, the party that wouldn't even let you eat at the same table, the party that wouldn't even let you go to school, and then you want to party. This is why the party is called the progressive movement, is because every 20 years they find another movement to move far away from the original, which is racism. Okay, because in the 60s, when they signed those civil rights acts, we should have been done. Okay, but before we can celebrate and take the victory lap, what happened? Oh, it's women. We gotta focus on the women. And then the white women became the Women's Live organization. Now let's celebrate. No, we got an LGBTQ movement. These are people, their civil rights are being, and then fast forward all the way to 2020. Now, before we can even take a victory lap, what do we got? Oh, come on, bro. So now we can pretty much separate ourselves, abandon metaphorically the burning house that Dr. King and the civil rights movement delivered us to. So now we can operate as human beings. And this is why we're putting the humanitarian component with Black America, because the channel was inspired by getting the condition of Black Americans together. Okay, a better Black America, because a better Black America would be a better America for all people. So now with the working class, so the acronym is Black, Latin, Asian, Caucasian, Kinsman, meaning all related. So we can somehow come together and focus the common denominator, which is class, and rise the tide. We're good. We're good. And you guys in these comments, I'm going to stay faithful to your family. Don't cheat on your wife and spend time with your children. And that's Marty Zhang. Hey, I like that. Okay, Spring, said it was in the 1980s culture that the world was facing the same problem. Everyone wouldn't have batted one eye and voted for Trump. It wouldn't even be a no-brainer. Exactly. But they gave Bill Clinton mass incarceration, threw the crack and the drugs out there with us, locked us up by the droves. We're dealing with now the same situation. So it's literally a do-over. And our job is making sure that history does not repeat itself. Let me see here. No Medicare or Medicaid, Social Security cut, etc. So listen, there's a component, and I'm hearing conversations about universal health care and an open market. Okay, on Medicare and Medicaid, meaning, you can actually get all, from a health, this country should provide free health care. And if there is some type of insurance, it needs to be an open market where you're paying $10, $15 a month. You go in there and do a copay, because right now, from a capitalism perspective, this is why you're seeing the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, things like that, people in themselves, because our country has to understand that we could be a social society as long as still having a facet at the same time. It shouldn't just be a capitalist system as a whole. Let me see here. And who profits from all the BS? And that's Michael McFall. You ready? Michael, you ready? We the people, you and I, brother, we the people, because if we not having no taxes on tips, no tax on your overtime wages, no taxes on your Social Security, and only people that's taxed on Social Security if you make $100 a month, and no tax basically tax exemption for wage earners that earn less than $150,000. And if you were to surpass that $150,000, you're only being taxed at a 5% rate, which is pennies in a bucket, and a $5,000 stimulus check from Doge because of the frivolous, wasteful spending that they stopped. Okay, meaning there's no more is going out, so they can distribute it as a dividend. And the federal government discusses right now on a $3,800 stimulus check from the federal government. So Michael McFall says, and who profits from that? And I'm gonna go ahead and say, for the first time in our history, and the first time in our lifetime, we the people. This is how it works. This is why the Democratic Party is pretty much dismantling and is so silent, because their careers, are an issue right now. And if they were to step up to the punch and pretty much I'm doing, then they pretty much will lose all their funding and all their donors, because their donors want the black community in the hoods and the prisons to be full. They want you broke, busting, and disgusted. They want you robbing and killing and pillaging, immigrating, illegally. And you can look at the last 4 years to understand that. And that's a fact. And that's a fact. It is what it is. And Trump deranged syndrome is real. Because when I sit back, and I got to go to Maxine family, man, I done been in functions and situations with her, man, and she's above it here in LA with the community leaders, with the elders, with my elders. They're literally friends. And for us to be intimate and have a conversation, and I'm sharing what I'm sharing to you right now, she hit mine and said, we got to stop Trump. And I said, but what about the no tax on baby? Listen, we have to stop Trump. He is a threat to our democracy. And I sat back and she's a hired gun. Her whole career, has been a fraud. She's enriched herself and her family, which is fine, but her job has never been for the people. And I have to actually understand that. So syndrome is real. And I'm calling out Hakeem Jeffries, okay, who's the minority leader. Okay, in my mind, the leader of the Democratic Party. If please go have these conversations, fill up, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, Social Security, $150,000, tax exemption, tax reform, the $5,000 from Doge, the $3,800 from the federal government. Take that thing to a House floor and let's have a House vote. If they do not do this, then that means that the Democratic Party has literally not only sold their souls, but they're selling this country. Because if they don't recognize the benefits in these times that it help the American people, then that's a problem. So we really want to have this conversation. Okay, let me see here. Stop blaming the past and the people that don't exist anymore. Okay, no. Let me go ahead and just get on the same page with Marty, because it says stop blaming the past. See, the past is the reason why we're in the situation right now, because if you don't blame, and I could say blaming is turning the light on or putting, turning the light on and acknowledging what happened in the past, then you can only find out why we are in the position and condition that we are in right now. And we have to realize that we can't make the same mistakes. So the past dictates the future. The past dictates the futures. Okay. Got a little philosophy, in my war chest, and the past dictates the future. So the past and understand, where we went wrong and, just an individual that's been lost. I'm going to keep it in layman's terms for Marty. Just say if we were lost and we were driving somewhere before GPS and all of that, or we just, our system or whatever, we're driving and then somebody say, wait a minute, we passed this tree before. Yeah, we have. Okay, let's go that way. That's what the past will do for you. The past, turn a theory into a theorem. The past will put you on the right path, because insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And we can't do that anymore. And then Calvin Jackson, he just showed us his ignorance. Butter biscuit lord, like he just showed his ignorance. Okay, because you're on a YouTube channel, we're educators. We're literally black elite, career individuals on the next level that's sacrificing our careers to basically do the rights and the will of the people, because our elected officials clearly have dropped the ball and none of them are going to bat for the working class. And they never will. Only every 4 years in every election. Because right now, the Democratic Party should be championing the working class, which includes the middle class, should be drawing up that bill. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, tax exemption, wage earners less than $150,000. And if you surpass that with the no tax on overtime, you're only being taxed at a 5% tax bracket. Okay. As well as a $5,000 stimulus from Doge because they found waste spending in the trillions and the $2 trillion and the $3,800 stimulus from the federal government. Our elected officials, our Democratic elected officials, if they did that, number one, the world would be a better place. United States would be on point. And pretty much, if that's the case, they wouldn't have a job because their purpose is to resist and to do all of this. And for me, I was done when I was thinking Antifa, was pretty much doing, the Teslas and all that. And I talked to some of my Antifa friends and they said, no, I drive a Tesla. It turned out that it was a Chinese man and a Chinese organization behind this to make you think that Tesla's going down. They literally in Spokane, Washington, shot out, the cameras, drew some slurs on the door and Molotov cocktails, some Teslas, and burned up 6 Teslas on a repair shop in Washington. And when caught the guy, the FBI got involved and they snatched it. They basically took his picture and everything. And he actually was a Chinese man as a white man. So think about that. So we really got to understand, because like I said, with Antifa and all of that, they love this country. They want to see this country thrive. And I've had conversations with them and they pretty much ask thing. And I've explained to them for us, it's a black thing. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let me see here. And I appreciate y'all. God bless the United States. God bless the United States. And I'm going to just say this, and Rob Dan, thank you for the confirmation. Ignore history are doomed to repeat. Exactly. So this is why when the Democrats, point at the Republicans, they're trying to take the history books. No, the Democrats take the history books is because it's going to lead directly to the Democrats. Think about it. The Democratic South, the Democratic Party as a whole, opposed, ending slavery and fought a civil war against the of America, against the Union to preserve slavery. Think about that. And when you look the, Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django, that was in the state of Texas. OK, and they started Juneteenth because, newly freed slaves was rolling through. They saw, blacks still picking cotton. They didn't get the memo. So think about that. So we can and we will. We can and we will. Let me see here. Somebody put in, he's like our Ronald Reagan. Absolutely outside of the negative, because Reagan was played both sides because the Iran Contras and all of that, after he, the attempted assassination, he really opened the door on the corruption and open all of that. But Trump, he's not compromised by no stretch of the imagination. And he's doing the will of people. And this is why, there's a mass exodus in the Democratic Party. This is why he won all the swing states. This is why he won the popular vote. This is why he won the black vote, male vote, the Latino vote, etc. And this is why the Democratic Party in a position that it's in. The black woman has tapped out because she understands, how it feels to be played. And that's all they did. OK, because, it just when you get a taste of it and then, it's a hard pill to swallow. So my sisters, support what we're doing, have our back. But your brother, your husband, your father, we got this and we will figure this thing out. Let me see. Don't mean ownership. Absolutely, it does not. But if you have been in this country and been paying taxes and investing in this country your whole life, then this is your homeland. So you are an country. And it's just when I say this, Ernie Walton, it's just in the form of equity. OK, it's just like, owning the house for, 40 years. And then, you look back and say, wow, I didn't pay my house off. I got, all this equity. Go and get a little something to that. That's all that is. Let me see here. And Kelvin Jackson, I'm Texas, a Trump judge already cut overtime pay for working hard individuals. So what I'm saying is, and thanks for patience. And I'm so glad. And you see how this worked, Kelvin Jackson. Once you take that hater jacket off and really understands, because knowledge is the first gift that God gives us. The second is wisdom. And the third is understanding. So now you understand what I'm saying. So we want to push that, no tax on income to the federal level, because your federal taxes, that's the big check. They take the most of that out. Okay. And you still will get your credit as well. But at the end of the day, we're trying to push this to a national scale. And this is why we don't have an issue with the Department of Education being dismantled, because it needs to go to the states. So smart enough to figure it out, okay, because the monies that the states won't be getting from the Trump administration now on Lotto, for one of those tickets, it's going, they're raising the Lotto tickets now because they raise millions upon millions of dollars. So that's a good thing. And thanks for that. Okay, because Kelvin Jackson confirmed it's already happened in Texas. He said, I'm from Texas. A Trump judge already cut overtime pay for hardworking Americans. That's a beautiful thing. So we want, this to be a national mandate. We want this to be an act of Congress. We want to see our elected congressional, officials, our Congressional Black Caucus members, if these individuals are supportive of the American people, it's what it is. Let me see here. And let me see if Spring can only look at the next. Exactly. Because, it's a difference between, positive, negative. There's a difference between optimism and pessimism. And there's between God and the devil. And it's that simple, because like I said, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, we are children of God and we're going to be all right. It is what it is. Let me see here. Sonia Flores. Okay, sorry. Like Black and indigenous people, which are the Hispanic, who native land has opened our eyes in bright light and shine before the eyes are closed. Don't be blind. Absolutely. And thanks for that comment. So big up to you. Pretty much will get comment of the day award, because at the end of the day, we have to really understand who we are. We have to really understand who we are. It is what it is. Let me see here. All right. So you guys lit these comments up today. And let me see if some are disciplines, disciples of the devil. Absolutely. And Kelvin Jackson. Absolutely. Because, the devil has his disciples. Okay. The devil has his minions, his legions, and if you look at the Bible, it just clearly explains. So this is why we got to stay prayed up. This is why we got to each one teach one. This is why I got to share the knowledge and understanding, because one of the books that the Democrats don't want you to read, okay, is the Science of Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch pretty much said we could do this for hundreds, if not thousands of years, unless a phenomenon happened. And the phenomenon is social media, the internet. We are able to have conversations because we were 6 degrees of separation at one time in our lifetimes. And now, you just press a button and it is what it is. It is what it is. Let me see here. Why is it that the billionaires are telling you that, let me see here, that things will get tough and rough for them as well? It's not the billionaires. It's the legacy media. Okay. And if you did not know, the legacy media is owned and operated by, powers and forces, people don't see. So it's pretty much the legacy media. That's the catalyst to all the doom and gloom. And you can really make it make sense because our Democratic elected officials pretty much echo the sentiment. It's like they get an assignment on a daily basis and they sit back and say, okay, this is what we're talking about. So blame the billionaires and the doom and gloom and all of this, because they don't want to be optimistic. An optimistic person is too godlike. Okay, if we're focusing on optimism, it's more angelic than demonic. But if you're dooming and glooming and fear mongering, you're affecting individuals, in the way that you can affect them. It is what it is. So we got to figure this out. Like Fox News is one, MSNBC, all of the legacy medias, the CBS, ABC, Viacom, they're all on the same page. But the only difference between Fox News and these other outlets is that Fox News understand how to control both sides of the narrative. That's how you go viral. You have it from both sides. So they know how to control the masses with that. They'll bring an individual that's positive. They'll bring an individual that's negative. They'll talk about a debate before the show. One has a, stance on this and a stance on that. And then they typically go at it because it's from an entertainment perspective. But at the end of the day, we know Fox News is conservative and the rest of these liberal stations. This is why you got to watch these different, figure these things out. It is what it is. Let me see here. Spring want to go back to the 1950s type USA. Well, now I want to do that. because the 1950s, man, it was segregation. And I understand what you're saying, okay, but I think we can actually figure it out and bring these things together. But I do understand what you mean when you say that. Let me see here. Many Americans are losing the Fed government jobs so they now can get a real job. Absolutely. And this is why the tariffs are being used as a bargaining and a negotiation tool to bring jobs. So with the with the Hyundai going to the White House last week and investing billions of dollars here in the United States to build steel mills in Louisiana, mill in Georgia, to build plants to build the Hyundai cars. They're talking about, along with the Taiwan chip maker who's going to bring chip manufacturers to Phoenix, Arizona. They're talking 200,000 jobs from a minimum perspective. So instead of, leeching off the government and working for the government and being a Democratic bloc because you're gay, lesbian, queer, AI, elemental, and then the Democrats hire you, that's what they were doing, pretty much hiring Democrats to vote Democratic. So now, that things are different, then you guys got to be humans just like the rest of us. And this is why the Democrat running scared, because these elected officials may have some money laundering issues when it comes to Social Security. Because Social Security, they put out last week that you're going to have to verify yourself if you want to continue receiving your Social Security check. So verification is a thing. And I read an article where they said person verification, but, we're going to push and mandate that, just a verification process, just like, an app or your bank or anything where you take a picture of your ID front and back, take a picture of your face and all of that. Now you're going to have to, if you want your Social Security to continue, and the ones that are not verified, they're going to basically follow the money trail and go and find individuals, the Democratic elected officials that's been money laundering, taking these checks of the people, and coming to find out when they cheated the election that these 1.6 million people that's getting Social Security checks mail-in ballot, and they were all casted for Joe Biden. And this is why they stopped the voting on day one. And then we woke up the next day and Biden was beating Trump. So, and these are that you're not going to have on the mainstream because it's need to know. It is what it is. Now, one central place to chip in education was the Department of Now. If you live in a broke state, guess what? You ain't never eating anything ever again. That's not true. That's not true. Leo, this is why the states have to be responsible for the education of all children. The states have to be, in the position that they're in to make sure that we're educating these children. Okay, because as of now, that's the Department of Education been there, J. Edgar Hoover days, okay, or Lyndon B. Johnson days, since the 60s. And we pretty much in these poor urban communities was pretty much a prison, a pipeline to prison organization, because you shove it out. If the child's not properly educated and is not, reading and on the comprehension level as a third or fourth grader on the national scale, then the odds of the individual going to prison is great. Okay. So now we need to focus on Head Start. We need to focus on families educating their children, and actually long term under the Trump administration, down the road, get a constitutional amendment to amend the 13th Amendment and take the criminalization clause off the Constitution. Then we can actually invest more money in education instead of investing more money in prison. Because if you did know, it's $114 to imprison a state prisoner here in the state of California when they only earmark $14,000 per child to educate. See, that's a problem. It is what it is. Let me see here. Trump spoke about equal playing ground. He wants everyone to succeed. Absolutely. Not only he, but we as individuals, as American citizens, we the people, okay, as elected officials, Republican, Democrats or indifferent, what we should be doing. But somehow, some way, the Democrats have aligned themselves as the opposition party to the United States of America. And I say that because to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, we are a God-fearing. The Democratic Party lost the Civil War. Okay. And the only way they get to continue is the ghost of Democratic past, and that's white supremacy, the KKK, segregation, and more importantly, in recent years, mass incarceration. And it's crazy that the last 4 years that we had a Democratic leadership, that crime, you can go rob stores, and if you didn't steal something if you stole something less than $1,000, they had to let you go. 47 all. It was crazy under the Democrats they let that happen, because they need them just filled. And then now Trump's in office, and now here we go. We got ICE, deportation. And now, if you steal a bag of chips, getting third strike and you going to prison. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let me see here, Marcus Garvey and his nonviolent philosophies. No, not at all. I'm not a Dr. Umar. I'm Malcolm Martin X, okay, because I believe in the civil rights movement and Dr. King. And if you did not know, he followed Gandhi, and then Malcolm X came in. These are what you call revolutionaries, and revolutionaries motivate change. So we're basically dawned on something that we've never dawned on before. So this is why out the gate, when people hear, what I'm saying, they call it rhetoric and write it off. But then when they listen and then they understand, they say, wait a minute. This guy looking to bypass Congress and make sure, the American people are straight. Absolutely. That's my black job. And my black job is Special Ambassador to Black Humanitarian Affairs, American and Humanitarian Affairs. Elon runs Doge, I run Baja. Think about that. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let me see here. Also, not a person who is 360 years old. So Ernie, can you imagine? Okay. When they do the Social Security verification in person or do the ID online, can you imagine, after all that's clear and said and done, when they sit back and see the individual that's getting that 360 years old and getting a Social Security check? Could you imagine what that's going to look like when they put on social media in the world news of the individual elected official or politician that was getting that check? Why they got to go for Trump. And this is why Trump is a threat to their democracy, because like I said, it is what it is. Billions and Ernie, trillions have been saved with Doge. This is why Elon Musk and Trump are talking about a $5,000 that will go to the American people. It is what it is. It is what it is. So, man, I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all hit the like, hit that notification. We're going up in 2025. We're working people by the people. Okay. We're not going to sit back and, assume that our elected officials have our best interests at hand, because right now they're saving their careers and they're hiding the hand that feeds them. Until next time, host Bouchon Glover, the Special Ambassador to Black American Humanitarian Affairs. I appreciate y'all. You guys have an amazing day. This is your man, Bouchon Glover. Peace out.